My boyfriend brought home a stray cat. He claimed he was way too busy at work and asked me to look after it. But the moment he left, I heard the cat mutter under its breath. Ugh. Who are you calling a stray? You cheap, cheating scumbag. Then, it turned its head toward me. Its voice was filled with pure frustration. I'm a purebred Maine Coon. I cost $80,000, honey. I was supposed to be a romantic gift from your boyfriend to your best friend. But those two realized I'm way too high maintenance. They were too lazy to feed me, so they dumped me on you. And you're actually standing there smiling? Skeptical, I took a picture of the scruffy-looking cat and searched it online. To my shock, it really was an incredibly rare, expensive breed. Seeing my dumbfounded expression, the cat continued its sassy rant. See? I told you you're clueless. You're even about to give up that prestigious clinical fellowship to your bestie. You think doing that will save you from a long-distance relationship? Let me tell you, he's already got his transfer approved. He's moving to the branch office over there soon. They've already picked out a loft to move in together. Yours truly heard that once she gets back from the fellowship, her career will skyrocket. That vacant chief of medicine position is being kept warm just for her. I immediately opened my laptop, wrote my application overnight, and sent it to the chief's inbox right before the deadline. In our Snapchat group chat, Maya sent a voice note, her voice sickeningly sweet and babyish. Chloe, what am I going to do when I move to Chicago? I'm going to miss you so much. Ethan immediately followed up with a text, speaking as if it were the most natural thing in the world. We should pitch in and help Maya rent a nice apartment. It's not safe for a girl to live alone in a new city. I didn't reply. They just kept chatting away without me. Ethan, you're not Chloe's husband yet. Don't you dare touch my bestie's money, even if it's for me. Oh, stop pretending. Who was the one crying on FaceTime last time? Because some creep followed her after a night shift. Let's get you a safe place so you don't cry again. And who was the one who used chasing away a creep as an excuse to drink half my bottle of Cabernet, pass out on my couch, and force me to drag him back? I quietly closed the app. Maya was my college roommate for 4 years. She came from a poor background, so I constantly helped her out financially. Her favorite catchphrase was always, "What would I do without you?" And Ethan was my childhood sweetheart of over 10 years. The only reason they even knew each other was because of me. My phone suddenly buzzed. It was a notification saying my car allocation had been approved. I had been eyeing that dream car for over 6 months. Finally, I could buy it. As I was planning the payment, the cat's voice drifted over lazily in my head. Why waste money on a depreciating car? Buy real estate. It's way better. I froze. Property in this city? I don't even have enough for a down payment. The cat rolled its eyes, its tail swishing imperiously. Who said anything about buying luxury condos? By the pigsties. Yours truly has connections in the feline world. A fat orange cat from the city planning commissioner's house told me that area is about to be acquired for a massive Disneyland expansion. $800,000 will turn into $10 million. Do you get it, dummy? I stared at the "congratulations, you're approved" notification for 5 seconds, then resolutely canceled my car reservation. Ethan's call came through a second later. He demanded, "Why did you cancel the car reservation?" I realized that since he knew more about cars, I had used his phone number for the reservation updates. Then his tone shifted effortlessly. "Actually, since Maya is moving to a new city, commuting will be tough for her. Why don't we use that money to buy her a car instead?" Wow. They really were leeching off of me and me alone. How did I never notice this before? Looking back, when Ethan and Maya first met, they acted like enemies, both complaining that the other was stealing my attention. But at some point their dynamic shifted. Ethan started buying duplicates of everything for Maya. He even invited her to our holiday dinners, Valentine's Day dates, and anniversaries under the guise of loving me so much that he loved my friends too. Back then, I thought he was incredibly sweet and considerate. Now I realize I was just the shield. On the phone, Ethan was still rambling, making plans for my money. Out of that $300,000 you saved, give Maya $100,000 for her rent, and use the other $200,000 to buy her a decent car. That should be plenty. I casually replied, "Sure, go ahead and look at apartments and cars for her. I need to take a shower. Talk to you later." Ethan clearly didn't expect me to agree so easily. His voice filled with pure joy. "Chloe, you are so understanding. You're the best." In the past, when he praised me for being understanding, and Maya chimed in with "Thank you, bestie," it warmed my heart. Now looking back, that wasn't gratitude. It was them gloating over how easy I was to exploit. My stomach churned, and I felt physically sick. I hung up, opened my laptop, finished the fellowship application, double-checked everything, and hit submit exactly 1 second before the midnight deadline. Phew. As the submission successful notification popped up, I took a deep breath. Want to use my spot to get a promotion and a raise? Want to use my money to move in together and play house? In your dreams. The next morning, I took the subway to the hospital. When I pushed open the office door, Maya was already sitting inside. There was a breakfast spread on her desk, a gourmet sandwich and an iced latte. She was sipping it with a lazy, content smile. Seeing me walk in, she put down her cup and waved her breakfast box at me with a smirk. My secret admirer sent this over first thing in the morning. He even remembers all my dietary restrictions. As she spoke, she intentionally brushed her hair back, revealing a fresh, dark hickey right above her collarbone. Her voice dripped with braggy sweetness. Chloe, do you think I should finally say yes to him? I put down my bag and replied flatly, well, you have to take the horse out of the stable to see if it actually runs. Her smile stiffened for a fraction of a second, but she quickly recovered her cute persona, though a trace of smugness lingered in her eyes. Don't worry, I'll definitely introduce him to you eventually. Before I could reply, the hospital WhatsApp group buzzed with a notification. The fellowship candidates have entered the final evaluation stage. Results will be announced within 2 days. Maya glanced at her phone, and the corners of her mouth practically reached her ears. She slid over and grabbed my arm, her tone incredibly light. Chloe, out of everyone, you and I have the best shot. Since you're not competing with me, I practically have this in the bag. Ethan said he wants to celebrate early tonight. Are you coming? I pulled my arm back and said coldly, I'm busy. I have outpatient clinic duty today. She blinked, sensing my sudden coldness. Why are you acting so weird today? I walked to the door and threw a glance over my shoulder. It's time for your rounds. With that, I walked out, not bothering to look at her face. The morning sun beamed through the hallway windows, casting a bright light on my white coat. I quickened my pace toward the clinic. At the end of my shift, Ethan was waiting for me. He leaned against my office doorframe, putting on his usual peacemaker attitude. Chloe, don't be a party pooper. Even though Maya is leaving for the fellowship, she's going to be all alone there. As her friends, we should celebrate for her and talk about pitching in for her rent. I closed the medical chart in my hands and looked up at him. The list isn't even out yet. Are you guys popping champagne already? Ethan choked on his words. Before he could speak, I took a step forward. Catching Maya completely off guard, I ripped open her shirt collar. The dark red hickey on her collarbone was instantly exposed under the bright fluorescent light. Since Maya has such a passionate admirer who brings her breakfast and leaves hickeys every day, I don't think she needs you running around worrying about her rent, I said calmly, looking back and forth between their pale faces. If you have that much free time, Ethan, maybe worry about your own business. Maya's face went completely white. She scrambled to pull her collar back together. Ethan's expression froze, and a brief flash of guilt crossed his eyes. I didn't waste another second on them. I turned and walked straight out of the office. Leaving the hospital, I took an Uber straight to the outskirts of the city. I had passed by this area before but never paid attention to it. Now that I was here, it looked even more desolate than I imagined. Abandoned warehouses stood tilted, their rusty metal roofs full of holes. Broken bricks and wild weeds covered the ground, showing faint traces of an old, abandoned livestock farm. A few collapsed animal pens still barely held up their wooden structures, and the air smelled faintly sour. According to the real estate agent, the previous owner wanted to make a fortune raising livestock, but a massive disease outbreak wiped out his inventory, leaving him bankrupt. This land had been a hot potato on the market for 2 years. I knew exactly what I was doing. I didn't just throw in the $300,000 I saved for the car. I scraped together every penny of my personal savings, and even borrowed $400,000 from my parents. With a total of $800,000, I bought this entire desolate farm lot. The moment I signed the contract, the agent handed me the keys, giving me a look that suggested he thought I was the biggest idiot on earth. I took them. They felt heavy in my hand, but for the first time in my life, I felt completely secure. When I got home, I locked the contract safely in the deepest drawer of my desk. I opened my phone and saw that Maya had just posted on Instagram. Her grid showed a lavish Italian dinner. Wagyu steaks, lobsters, and beautifully plated desserts. Ethan sat opposite her, showing only half of his side profile. Her caption was pathetic. Is this how friendship ends? We just drift apart? So heartbroken. Underneath, Ethan had already left a comment. It's okay. I'll always be by your side. As if that weren't enough, he quickly added another comment. Chloe was out of line today. I apologize on her behalf. Their little back and forth made me want to gag. I was about to close the app when the Maine Coon, who was busy devouring premium wet food, suddenly let out a lazy thought. Short on cash, are we? What's the rush? Did you forget the designer solid gold jewelry set you lent to Maya? I slapped my forehead. How could I have forgotten about that? Back when we first started working, Maya complained that she was worried her colleagues would look down on her, so she wanted some high-end accessories to boost her confidence. Ethan had chimed in, urging me to lend her my solid gold bracelet, necklace, and earrings for a while. He promised he would buy me a brand new set later. I hadn't thought much of it at the time, so I handed them over. But Ethan's promises, like all his other lies, were always deferred to next time. Meanwhile, Maya wore them everywhere without shame, eventually stopped mentioning them altogether, and even secretly bragged to others that they were a gift from a rich admirer. Gold prices had skyrocketed recently. That set weighed over 50 grams. At today's market value, it was worth a fortune. Since I had lent it to her without a formal agreement, getting it back wouldn't be easy. But I wasn't the pushover I used to be. Whatever belongs to me, they're going to spit it back out. I took an Uber to Maya's rented apartment. The hallway was dead quiet. Just as I reached the door, I heard their hushed voices coming through the thin wooden panel. Ethan, do you think Chloe noticed something? The way she acted today was really off. Don't worry. We've been together for 2 years, and she never suspected a thing. She's incredibly gullible. She's probably at home right now feeding my cat for us. The two let out a low chuckle. Maya's voice turned sweet and smug. So, do you think she'll really lend me that $300,000? I'm dying to move into that loft with you. Of course she will. She always does what I say. Oh good. I feel so much better now. So, how are you going to thank me? Just with words. Then came the rustling of clothes, followed by muffled, breathless giggles that made my stomach turn. I sneered and banged on the door with all my might. Bang, bang, bang. The loud noise echoed through the empty hallway, triggering the motion sensor lights on the entire floor. Who the hell is that? Ethan's voice rasped, clearly annoyed at being interrupted. Me. Chloe. I shouted. Instantly, a chaotic scramble erupted inside. Chairs knocked over, followed by panicked, hurried footsteps. A moment later, the door swung open. Ethan stood there, his shirt buttons completely mismatched. And there were fresh hickeys on his neck. The silence in the hallway was so thick you could cut it with a scalpel. Ethan stood frozen in the doorway, his shirt half unbuttoned, exposing a cluster of fresh, dark red bite marks along his collarbone. Behind him, Maya scrambled to adjust her robe, her eyes wide with frantic panic, her sweet persona completely shattered. See Chloe. Ethan stammered, his face draining of all color. His hands hovered awkwardly over his chest as he tried to button his shirt with trembling fingers. What? What are you doing here at this hour? I didn't answer him. My eyes drifted past his shoulder into the messy living room. On the glass coffee table sat an empty bottle of vintage red wine too, glasses and a crushed velvet jewelry box. My solid gold jewelry set was sitting right beside it, glistening under the warm lamp light. Chloe, don't get the wrong idea. Maya rushed forward, her voice high-pitched and breathless, squeezing herself between Ethan and the doorframe. Ethan just came over to help me fix my bathroom pipes. They were leaking. The hickeys. Those aren't hickeys. He caught a bad rash from the dusty pipes. I almost chuckled at the sheer absurdity of the lie. A rash in the shape of teeth marks. I didn't come here to discuss plumbing, Maya, I said, my voice ice cold and unbothered. I pushed past Ethan, stepping straight into the apartment. Hey, you can't just barge in. Ethan tried to grab my arm, but I spun around and glared at him with such intense disdain that his hand froze in midair. Touch me again, Ethan, and the next call I make is to your HR department to discuss your company credit card usage, I said flatly. In my head, the Maine Coon's haughty voice echoed with precise timing. Atta girl. Tell him his boss knows he listed those luxury dinners as client outreach. Ethan's mouth snapped shut. His eyes darted nervously. I walked over to the coffee table, picked up the velvet box and inspected my solid gold set, the 50-gram custom-carved dragon and phoenix bangles, the heavy pendant necklace, and the matching hoop earrings. Maya's eyes flared with sudden panic. She darted over, attempting to snatch the box back. Chloe, what are you doing? You gave those to me. I lent them to you, I corrected, closing the box with a crisp, loud snap. 4 years ago, when you begged me for something nice to wear to your first interview. I have the original receipts, the appraisal certificate with my name on it, and the WeChat text messages from the day I handed them over. Chloe, don't be so stingy, Ethan chimed in, putting on his usual righteous act to defend his mistress. Gold prices just went up. Maya has been wearing those for years. They're basically hers now. Why are you coming here in the middle of the night to strip her of her dignity? Is this because she's getting the fellowship and you're jealous? I turned slowly to face Ethan. I looked at his mismatched buttons, his flushed face, and the absolute entitlement oozing from his pores. Stingy, I echoed softly. Ethan, my parents gave me that gold set for my college graduation. It's worth over $20,000 today. If Maya wants dignity, she should buy her own jewelry instead of wearing my heirlooms while sleeping with my boyfriend. Chloe, how can you say something so foul? Maya squeaked, squeezing out 2 neat theatrical tears. Ethan and I are innocent. We've done nothing wrong. If you take that jewelry back, what am I supposed to wear to the hospital gala next week? Everyone knows those are my signature pieces. Then I guess everyone is about to find out you're a fraud, I replied smoothly, slipping the velvet box deep into my leather handbag. You can't take them. Maya lunged forward, dropping her sweet act entirely, her nails clawing toward my bag. Give them back. Ethan, stop her. Don't let her. Take my gold. Before she could touch me, I pulled out my phone, unlocked the screen, and aimed the camera directly at her face, and then down at Ethan's collarbone. Flash. The bright camera strobe blinded them both for a second. What the hell are you doing? Ethan roared, shielding his face. Taking evidence, I said, glancing at the crisp, high-definition photo on my screen. A clear shot of my best friend and my boyfriend half-naked in an apartment paid for by her mysterious admirer. If either of you takes one step closer to me, this photo goes straight to the hospital staff group chat, the medical board, and your parents. Maya gasped, pulling her robe tightly around her throat, her face turning from red to a ghostly pale white. Chloe, you wouldn't try me, I whispered. I looked at Ethan one last time. The man I had loved for a decade, the man I had planned a future with. Looking at him now, I felt no heartbreak, no betrayal, no anger. I only felt an overwhelming sense of revulsion, as if I had accidentally stepped in something rotten on the pavement. Ethan, we're done, I said flatly. Don't bother coming back to my apartment. I've already called the locksmith. Your clothes will be packed in trash bags and left by the curb tomorrow morning at 8. Chloe, wait. Ethan panicked, realizing he was about to lose his free housing, his maid, his safety net, and his piggy bank all at once. Chloe, let's talk about this. You're misunderstanding everything. Maya was just drunk. I love you. I didn't give him another second of my life. I turned on my heel, walked out of the apartment, and slammed the heavy metal door behind me, letting his desperate shouts drown in the empty hallway. The next morning, the sun rose over a crisp, cool autumn day. I arrived at the hospital at 7:30 a.m., wearing a tailored navy pantsuit under my pristine white coat. My hair was tied up in a sharp, professional bun. On my arm sat my leather tote, safely carrying the recovered gold jewelry. When I entered the main surgical department office, the atmosphere was already buzzing with electric tension. Today was the day the official results for the prestigious Chicago Clinical Fellowship were to be published. Maya was sitting at her desk, wearing thick concealer over her collarbone and heavy foundation under her swollen eyes. She looked like she hadn't slept a wink. Beside her stood Ethan, who had sneaked into the hospital early, looking disheveled and nervous. He kept trying to catch my eye, his face filled with a nauseating mix of fear and lingering arrogance. When Ethan saw me walk in, he immediately trotted over, lowering his voice to an urgent whisper. Chloe, look. Last night was a mistake, he murmured, putting on his best pleading expression. I was just trying to help Maya because she was feeling stressed about the fellowship results. You don't need to be so heartless. If you return her the gold set and promise not to release that photo, I'll forgive you for locking me out of the apartment last night. I didn't even stop walking. I opened my desk drawer, pulled out a medical file, and looked at him as if he were a buzzing mosquito. Forgive me. I smiled faintly. Ethan, your trash bags are currently sitting by the dumpster on 4th Street. If you hurry, the garbage truck hasn't arrived yet. You. Ethan's face contorted in rage. Chloe, don't press your luck. You think you can survive without me? Who helped you edit your thesis? Who drove you to work when it rained? You're an ungrateful. Ding. The public broadcast speaker in the hallway chimed loudly, interrupting his tirade. Attention all medical staff. The chief of medicine's clear, authoritative voice echoed through the department. The final selection for the North American Clinical Surgical Fellowship has been finalized by the board. Maya instantly stood up, her nervous demeanor instantly replaced by a triumphant grin. She smoothed her skirt, shot me a smug, malicious look, and whispered, Keep your little gold set, Chloe. Once I get back from Chicago, I'll buy 10 of them just to throw in the trash. Ethan chimed in eagerly. That's right. Maya is about to be the rising star of this hospital. You're going to regret treating us like this, Chloe. The speaker continued. This year, the hospital received dozens of stellar applications. However, based on surgical precision, published research impact, and peer review, the sole candidate selected for the 100% fully funded 2-year fellowship in Chicago is. Maya took a step forward, raising her chin, ready to accept the applause of her colleagues. Dr. Chloe Vance. Silence. Absolute, deafening silence descended upon the entire office. Maya's smile froze mid-frame. Her eyes widened to the size of saucers, her hands trembling so violently that her iced coffee cup slipped from her grip, crashing onto the tile floor and splattering brown liquid everywhere. What? Maya squeaked, her voice cracking hysterically. No, that's a Mistake. That's a typo. The chief meant to say Maya Lin. I was the only applicant. Ethan stood frozen. His jaw dropped so low it almost hit the floor. See, Chloe? But you didn't apply. You said you were giving the spot to Maya. You promised. I slowly closed the medical chart in my hands, stood up, and looked down at them. With absolute, sovereign calm. I promised. I let out a soft laugh. Ethan, I never submitted a withdrawal form. I submitted my application at 11:59 p.m. 2 nights ago. My research index is triple Maya's. My surgical record is flawless, and unlike some people, I didn't spend my residency slacking off and relying on others to do my work. You bitch. Maya completely lost her mind. She lunged across the desk, her face twisted in pure, animalistic fury, her claws out. You stole my life. That spot was mine. Ethan promised it to me. Dr. Lin. A sharp, booming voice shattered the chaos. Director Harrison, the chief of medicine, stepped into the office, surrounded by senior department heads. His eyes swept over the shattered coffee cup, Maya's disheveled state, and Ethan standing inappropriately in a clinical area. Director Harrison. Maya immediately dropped to her knees, weeping hysterically, putting on her victim routine. Director. Chloe cheated. Backstabbed me. She knew how much I needed this fellowship to support my poor family. She used underhanded tactics to submit her application at the last second. Director Harrison's face turned darker than a thundercloud. Cheated. Director Harrison scoffed, pulling a thick leather folder from under his arm. Dr. Lin. Dr. Vance's research paper on minimally invasive cardiac repair was published in The Lancet last month. Her clinical evaluations are in the top 1% nationwide. What do you have? You didn't even complete your mandatory surgical hours without Dr. Vance co-signing your charts. Maya choked on her sobs, her face turning from red to purple. Furthermore, Director Harrison continued, his voice echoing with absolute authority. The board has reviewed the application timestamps. Dr. Vance submitted an immaculate, 40-page proposal. You, Dr. Lin, submitted a 5-page draft filled with formatting errors, expecting to be passed through unopposed. Director Harrison turned his gaze to Ethan. And Mr. Miller, why are you in my surgical department during clinical hours? Aren't you an administrative coordinator for the pharmaceutical wing? Ethan swallowed hard, his knees shaking. I was just. Save it, Director Harrison said coldly. Dr. Vance, congratulations. The hospital board expects you to lead our team in Chicago. Please pack your administrative files and prepare for handover. I bowed respectfully to Director Harrison. Thank you, Director. I won't let the hospital down. As Director Harrison and the board members walked out, the surrounding doctors and nurses broke into whispered giggles and cheers, shooting disgusted glances at Maya, who was still slumped on the floor in a puddle of spilled coffee. I picked up my leather bag, walked past Ethan, and leaned down close to Maya's ear. What did you say yesterday, Maya? I whispered softly. What would I do without you? I smiled, my eyes cold as steel. Turns out I do so much better. 3 days later, I moved into a high-end service apartment near the city center, taking my Maine Coon with me. The apartment was spacious, bathed in natural sunlight, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the skyline. Yours truly, whom I officially named Barnaby, was lounging on a plush velvet sofa, wearing a custom leather collar with a gold tag, purring loudly as he munched on fresh salmon sashimi. Ah, human. Barnaby's voice purred lazily in my mind, his tail swishing contentedly. Finally, a living space worthy of my royal stature. No more cheap kibble. No more smelling that foul man's cheap cologne. How's the news from the street, Barnaby? I asked, pouring myself a glass of white wine as I checked my laptop. Barnaby licked his paw casually. Oh, the feline intelligence network is buzzing. Today, a stray tabby near the hospital told me your ex-boyfriend is in deep trouble. I raised an eyebrow. Tell me more. Well, Barnaby purred. Ethan spent $20,000 of his company's funds buying luxury bags and reservation deposits for Maya, expecting her to get that high-paying Chicago post. Now that she failed, his company audit flagged his accounts. He's being investigated for expense fraud. I let out a soft laugh. Karma moves fast. That's not all, Barnaby continued, rolling onto his back. Maya's landlord evicted her yesterday because she couldn't pay the 6-month advance rent on that luxury loft she bragged about. She tried to move into Ethan's cheap rented room, but Ethan's parents found out about his affair and cut off his allowance. Those two parasites are currently screaming at each other in a motel room. Just as Barnaby finished his report, my phone screen lit up. It was an incoming call from Ethan. I waited for it to ring 5 times before pressing speakerphone. Chloe. Ethan's frantic, ragged voice burst through the speaker. He sounded like he was on the verge of a complete nervous breakdown. Chloe, please pick up. I know I was wrong. I was completely out of my mind. I took a slow sip of wine. What do you want, Ethan? Chloe, Maya seduced me. Ethan wept hysterically into the receiver, completely throwing his mistress under the bus without an ounce of hesitation. She was the one who kept coming on to me. She told me she was lonely. She manipulated me into giving her your money and your jewelry. I never loved her, Chloe. You're my childhood sweetheart. We've been together for 10 years. 10 years, I repeated coldly. And it took you 10 seconds to trade me for a cheap thrill. Chloe, please save me, Ethan begged, his voice trembling with terror. My company is threatening to sue me for embezzlement. I owe $30,000. If I don't pay it back by Friday, they're going to press criminal charges. You have savings. You have the car money. Just lend me $30,000. I'll marry you right now. We can go register at the courthouse today. I stared at the phone, astonished by the sheer, unadulterated depth of his narcissism. He genuinely believed that offering me marriage, a marriage to a fraud, a cheater, and a broke criminal, was some kind of generous prize. Ethan, I said, my voice smooth and icy. Do you remember the desolate farm lot I bought on the outskirts of the city last week? Ethan paused, confused. What? That piece of junk pigsty? What does that have to do with anything? Turn on the news, I said softly. On my laptop screen, the official municipal city planning press conference was being broadcast live. The city planning commissioner was standing in front of a giant digital map, pointing a laser pointer at the exact sector where my desolate farm sat. We are pleased to announce the official site selection for the $5 billion International Disneyland Resort and Cultural Zone, the commissioner announced. Proudly, land acquisition in Sector 4 will begin immediately, offering a 1,500% premium on existing property valuations. I took another sip of wine. My $800,000 investment just converted into a $12 million government buyout draft, I told the silent phone line. The advance deposit hit my bank account 10 minutes ago. Silence. Absolute, suffocating silence gripped the other end of the line. I could hear Ethan's heavy, erratic gasping for air as his brain tried to comprehend the unthinkable reality. The woman he tried to fleece out of $300,000 was now an independent multimillionaire, holding the key to a fortune he couldn't touch in 10 lifetimes. See, Chloe. Ethan whimpered, his voice squeaking like a dying rat. 12 million. You're a millionaire? Chloe, we can buy a mansion. We can. I corrected firmly. You can go to prison. Click. I hung up, blocked his number permanently, and tossed the phone onto the sofa. Barnaby jumped up beside me, nudging my hand with his giant, fluffy head. Well played, human. Now where is my caviar? Coming right up, Your Royal Highness, I laughed, scratching him behind his ears. 2 weeks later, the news of my $12 million land buyout had spread through the hospital like wildfire. Overnight, my status shifted from a talented senior resident to the most sought-after, wealthy elite doctor in the entire medical network. Senior consultants who used to overlook me were now eager to invite me to private medical galas, and real estate developers were practically begging to offer me VIP investment portfolios. Meanwhile, Maya's life had completely unraveled. Without the fellowship, without Ethan's financial support, and facing massive credit card debt, she was reduced to working double shifts in the emergency outpatient ward. Every time she saw me walk through the hospital corridors, wearing high-end designer suits, flanked by department heads, looking radiant and pristine, her eyes burned with a terrifying, venomous envy. On a rainy Tuesday afternoon, I was preparing my final surgical handover files before leaving for Chicago in 3 days. Barnaby's telepathic warning suddenly chimed in my head, sharp and urgent. Chloe. Alarm. A stray alley cat near the basement pharmacy just saw Maya sneaking into the restricted drug vault using your digital access key. She stole a bottle of potassium chloride. I froze, my hand hovering over my keyboard. Potassium chloride. A lethal cardiac arrest drug if administered incorrectly. Did she take my key? I asked internally, checking my lanyard. My digital keycard was missing from my coat pocket. She must have slipped it out when she bumped into me in the break room an hour ago. She's planning to inject it into patient 402's 4-bag. Barnaby relayed frantically. Patient 402 is under your direct care. She wants to frame you for a medical malpractice murder, so you lose your license and get arrested before you can leave for Chicago. A cold, dangerous spark flared in my eyes. She didn't just want my money and my spot. She wanted to destroy my entire life, my career and my freedom. Thank you, Barnaby, I murmured, my voice dropping to a deadly whisper. Tell your alley cat friend to keep watching. It's time to put this parasite down for good. Instead of rushing to room 402 alone, I walked straight to the chief of medicine's executive office. Director Harrison, I said calmly, knocking on his door. I just noticed my digital access keycard was stolen. I suspect someone may be attempting to tamper with patient files or medications under my name before my departure. Could we review the real-time security feed for Ward 4 together? Director Harrison's face turned serious instantly. Tampering with patient care? Absolutely. We walked directly to the central security monitoring room, accompanied by the chief of hospital security. The security guard pulled up the high-definition feed for room 402. On the screen, Maya was standing beside patient 402's stand. She was trembling, looking around nervously, pulling a concealed syringe filled with clear fluid from her pocket, aiming it directly at the rubber injection port of the saline bag. What is she doing? Director Harrison roared, slamming his fist onto the control panel. Get security up there now. Hold on, Director, I said calmly, holding up my phone, which was already recording the master monitor screen. Let her complete the entry attempt then. Catch her red-handed at the door. That way she can't claim she was just checking the line. 2 minutes later, Maya stepped out of room 402, wiping cold sweat from her forehead, a sinister, triumphant smile beginning to form on her lips. As soon as she turned the corner into the main hallway for Heavyset Hospital, security officers swarmed her, pinning her against the wall. What are you doing? Maya shrieked, struggling wildly. Get off me. I'm a doctor. Director Harrison, accompanied by the police officers I had called 10 minutes prior, walked down the hallway, his face contorted in pure unadulterated fury. Dr. Lin. Director Harrison barked. You are under arrest for attempted murder, theft of restricted narcotics, and severe breach of medical ethics. No. It wasn't me. I didn't do anything. Maya screamed, her sweet persona exploding into frantic, ugly shrieks. It was Chloe. Chloe told me to check that patient. She's trying to frame me because she hates me. I stepped out from behind the officers, holding up my phone displaying the crystal clear, high-definition video of her injecting the syringe into the bag while wearing my stolen keycard around her neck. Maya, I said smoothly. I intercepted the line before it reached the patient. The syringe contents have already been sent to the forensics lab for toxin testing. Your fingerprints are all over the barrel. Maya stared at the video on my screen. Her knees buckled. She collapsed onto the cold hospital floor, her eyes hollow, her face devoid of any color, realizing that her medical career, her freedom, and her life were officially over. The police officers snapped silver handcuffs around her wrists, dragging her away as she let out pitiful, hysterical wails that echoed down the clinical corridor. The fallout was swift, brutal, and absolute. The story of Maya's attempted murder and narcotics theft hit the city's major news outlets the very next morning. She was formally indicted on charges of attempted murder, theft of controlled substances, and medical fraud, facing a mandatory minimum sentence of 15 years in state prison. Her medical license was permanently revoked, and her family back home publicly disowned her to avoid the massive shame. Ethan didn't fare any better. Implicated in Maya's financial corruption and facing severe embezzlement charges from his own firm, Ethan was terminated immediately. His name was blacklisted across the entire pharmaceutical industry. To avoid prison time, his parents were forced to sell their family home to pay off his $30,000 corporate debt, leaving Ethan broke, homeless, and working double shifts as a night shift warehouse loader on the docks. On the morning of my departure for Chicago, I stood at the airport terminal. I was wearing a chic camel hair coat, black sunglasses, and high heels. Beside me sat my sleek Rimowa luggage and a custom designer pet carrier carrying Barnaby, who was wearing a tiny silk bow tie. Just as I was about to walk toward the first-class boarding gate, a ragged, filthy man burst through the crowd, shouting my name desperately. Chloe, Chloe, please. It was Ethan. He looked unrecognizable. His hair was greasy and unkempt, his clothes were stained with oil and dirt, his face was gaunt, and his eyes were bloodshot. 2 airport security guards immediately moved to intercept him, pinning his arms behind his back. Chloe, Ethan sobbed, tears cutting dirty trails down his pale face. Chloe, look at me. I'm ruined. Maya is in prison. I have nothing left. Please, you have $12 million. Just give me a small corner apartment. Let me be your driver in Chicago. I'll do anything. Please don't leave me. I stopped walking. I turned around slowly, lowering my sunglasses slightly, looking at the man who had wasted 10 years of my life. Ethan, I said softly, my voice carrying clearly over the busy airport lounge. Do you remember what you told me when you asked me to give Maya $300,000? Ethan blinked through his tears, confused. What? You said, Maya is going to a new city all alone, it's not safe for her. I smiled, a dazzling, radiant, victorious smile. Turns out, Chicago is very safe. For me. But your life? It was never safe from your own greed. Barnaby poked his fluffy head out from the top zipper of his carrier, letting out a loud, disdainful cat meow that sounded remarkably like a laugh. Good riddance, peasant. Barnaby's voice chimed triumphantly in my mind. Now, board the plane. The first-class salmon pâté is waiting. I pulled up my sunglasses, turned my back on Ethan's hysterical wails, and walked smoothly down the jet bridge toward the first-class cabin. 2 years later, Chicago, the grand auditorium of the International Surgical Society, was packed with 3,000 world-renowned medical pioneers, surgeons, and press representatives. Standing on the central podium under the bright spotlights was me. At 28 years old, I had just successfully led the world's first successful AI-assisted pediatric cardiac reconstruction, published 4 lead author papers in the New England Journal of Medicine, and officially accepted the position of Chief of Cardiovascular Surgery at the city's top medical center. The applause was deafening, filling the grand hall like roaring thunder. Thank you, I said into the microphone, my voice steady, confident, and inspiring. Success is not about sacrificing yourself for those who leech off your light. It's about recognizing your own value and building an empire that no one can take from you. After the ceremony, I stepped out of the glass doors of the medical center into the crisp afternoon air. A sleek black Rolls-Royce Phantom was waiting by the curb, driven by my personal chauffeur. I opened the rear door and stepped inside the plush leather interior. Sitting on a heated cashmere cushion in the back seat was Barnaby, now a magnificent 25-pound Maine Coon with a luxurious silver-black coat, wearing a diamond-studded collar. Welcome back, Chief Vance. Barnaby's purring voice echoed warmly in my mind as he leaned over to rub his cheek against my hand. I trust you brought my imported royal tuna? Of course, Your Majesty, I chuckled, pulling a gourmet glass container from my tote bag and placing it on his gold tray. I looked out the tinted window at the towering skyscrapers of Chicago, the bright blue sky, and the endless horizon ahead. I had my dream career, an unshakable fortune, complete freedom, and a loyal, magical feline companion who always had my back. I smiled, taking a sip of vintage champagne as the car glided smoothly onto the open highway, heading toward a future that belonged entirely to me.